A floor test inevitable. How long will it take is the question. Rashid Kidwai, author and political commentator, joins us. Faizan Mirza, NCP leader. Desh Ratan Nigam, political analyst. Rajdeep Sardesai, consulting editor. Rajdeep, I want to begin, with you. You've been tracking the developments very closely. How long and protracted do you see this floor test, or do you think after the national executive tomorrow that the Shiv Sena has called, especially after what Sharad Pawar might have told him this evening, now Uddhav Thackeray might, maybe step down, dissolve the assembly, go for a floor test? What are you picking? What do you think?
First of all, I don't know where we are getting this, that Sharad Pawar has told Uddhav Thackeray to step down. From what I gather from sources close to Mr. Pawar, he has told Uddhav Thackeray to first save his party before even thinking of what happens in the floor test. And this is the significant element even of tomorrow's national executive. Remember, under the anti-defection laws, it's not enough to have a two-thirds split of the legislature party, which Eknath Shinde has clearly achieved with 38 MLAs with him, at least at the moment. But you also need to split the entire organization right down the line, which means all the district units, all the affiliated members all need to go along with the breakaway group. Now, Uddhav Thackeray's worry and concern will be, A, losing the legislature party is one thing, but B, I cannot lose the party itself because I may lose the party symbol. And then the Thackerays themselves will be totally on the back foot. And that's the real fear that I believe that the Shiv Sena leadership of Uddhav Thackeray has at the moment. Similar things happened in Uttar Pradesh, you might recall, when Akhilesh Yadav was battling with his father Mulayam Singh a few years ago. The struggle was to who would get the party symbol. Now Uddhav Thackeray, having, it appears, lost hold of the legislature party, wants to control at least the Shiv Sena. He doesn't want to lose control of the Shiv Sena, particularly with just a couple of months to go for the BMC elections. And be clear, Devendra Fadnavis and the BJP is working to a plan, not just to capture power in Mantralaya in Maharashtra, but also capture the BMC, which is the cash cow, the citadel in a way of the Shiv Sena. If the Thackeray clan loses the BMC, then they are virtually completely marginalized from Maharashtra politics. So I think Uddhav Thackeray has been told by Sharad Pawar that we'll see what happens with the legislators on the floor of the house. Let them come to Mumbai, but first at least prove your strength in the party organization. Get your workers around you, get them to rally around you, because if you can't do that, then it's not just game, set and match as far as the government is concerned, but you will lose the party that your father created. And I think that's the fear somewhere. Will this rebellion spread from the legislature party to districts, especially outside Mumbai, where a new Shiv Sena in a way has emerged in the last decade or two?
Well, in that sense, Rajdeep, today, if you look at the basic district panchayat level, out of 94, local panchayat heads, 91 came in allegiance with Uddhav Thackeray. So at that level, at least, he seems to be having his party together. But Faizan Mirza is there with us. He's an NCP leader. Mirza साहब, देखिए, कोई सोर्स जो है हमारे वो कह रहे हैं कि उद्धव ठाकरे जी को आज पवार साहब ने बोला है, देखिए आपके पास नंबर नहीं है, आंकड़े नहीं है, ग्रेसफुली एक्सेप्ट करिए और मूव ऑन करिए. अब क्या बोला है, आपको स्पॉट पे डाल रहे हैं, पर जो मीटिंग हुई है उसमें क्या हुआ है आज?
हमें तो यही कह रहे हैं कि एज अ कंपोनेंट ऑफ महाविकास आघाड़ी एनसीपी विल स्टैंड फर्मली बिहाइंड शिवसेना, दैट इज उद्धव ठाकरे साहब. And I am very confident that Sharad Pawar sahab will take us out of this dilemma. तो ये जो भी है, this is a number game. और शरद पवार साहब को इसका बहुत knowledge है, and he is a very stalwart politician. So I think that he will take us out of this.
All right, Rashid Kidwai, the fact is, even here, if you look at it, more than Uddhav Thackeray, not just the NCP, everybody is looking up to Sharad Pawar to solve this political mess.
Because he is Sankat Mochak.
Rashid Kidwai.
Because he is Sankat Mochak, and he can only take us out of this.
He enjoys doing this a lot, and I think with a lot of years in experience, Mr. Pawar is perhaps one of the best persons to handle this. As Mr. Ajit Pawar was saying, we must remember a split in a political party is one thing, and a split in a legislature party is one thing. In 1969, Indira Gandhi defeated Morarji Desai in a kind of informal contest within the Congress party, within the Congress parliamentary party. She had a majority. but that old guard of the Congress led by Morarji Desai and others, they continue to hold the organization. That is why it was called Congress O, and that becomes a very protracted battle. Now the problem with Mr. Eknath Shinde is that he has entangled himself with too many things. He wants to dump Uddhav Thackeray, which he can do it, but he also wants to own Shiv Sena. Now that's a very difficult thing, as Priyanka Chaturvedi was rightly pointing it out, that anti-defection law is very clear. If you have 2/3, you have to go elsewhere. Like Jyotiraditya Scindia went to the BJP, and of course in this case all the MLAs had resigned. Here they cannot afford to resign also. So they have got themselves in a bit of trouble, which is a momentary thing. I think the Deputy Speaker, if the Deputy Speaker acts against this MLAs 12 or 16, then the courts will come in, and the Supreme Court, as we know, they may order a kind of composite floor test, and that's where I think Uddhav Thackeray will get into a real problem. While the fight over who's real Shiv Sena will continue, but it happens, Preeti, with long experience of mine in political journalism, the one who has majority of MLAs, MPs, etc., ultimately gets that kind of recognition also as a political party.
Before I go to Mr. Nigam, I want to bring in Rajdeep Sardesai back into this conversation. Rajdeep, do you see it where Eknath Shinde is concerned that it's not about merging with the BJP? He wants the party now.
Eknath Shinde wants power. Let's be very clear. For the last few days, we've been going on virtually suggesting that Eknath Shinde has been marginalized by Uddhav Thackeray. Really? Eknath Shinde controls the Thane Municipal Corporation. Eknath Shinde's son is a member of parliament. Eknath Shinde had the most lucrative portfolio in this government, urban development. Most of the Shiv Sena MLAs, in a way, were surrounded Eknath Shinde. He was like a godfather, some said, to many of them. He hasn't had a bad time, as much as it is made out to be. We've used Aditya Thackeray, we've used Uddhav Thackeray's style of functioning in a way almost as excuses to justify Eknath Shinde's rebellion. We need to get some facts clear today. The fact is, even as we speak, there is a former minister of the Shiv Sena whose land today has been confiscated in a money laundering case by the ED. Yesterday, Anil Parab, minister and close aide of Uddhav Thackeray, he was summoned by the ED. He appeared before the ED. There are 8 MLAs at least who, along with their relatives, have ED cases who are today with Eknath Shinde in Guwahati. Eknath Shinde's aim is protection for himself. Couple of his close aides also had income tax raids against them. He went to Uddhav Thackeray. Uddhav Thackeray said, I can't help you apparently. The truth is, Eknath Shinde wants total control over Thane. He wants total immunity from any kind of prosecution for him or people around him. And he has promised all those around him that the Mahashakti, as he called it, will be there to help him. He wants power. He recognizes that while the Thackeray's control the Sena, he cannot be Neta number 1. He wants to be Neta number 1, even if it is in a BJP government, as a deputy chief minister, so he becomes the Sena's Neta number 1.
But as a deputy chief minister of what?
Now.
Mr. Nigam, I'll bring you in, and Rajdeep, I'll bring you in. As a deputy chief minister of what party? As part of the BJP, as part of an independent group, or a part of the...
As part of, possibly he will initially be part of an independent breakaway group, because he has 2/3 of the legislators have gone with him.
But then wouldn't he be disqualified along with the others, Rajdeep?
No, whether he tries to capture the Sena will be a future hand. At the moment, his aim is Devendra Fadnavis, Chief Minister, Eknath Shinde, Deputy Chief Minister, all Shinde's key aides accommodated in the cabinet. And then the next step will be taken, whether he really wants to actually take on the Thackeray's in Mumbai and capture, in a way, the Sena. That battle, Preeti, will be decided when the BMC elections are held in October, November.
Right.
Whoever captures the October or any time between September to November, that's when that battle will be finally settled.
Deshratan Nigam, in all of this is the curious silence of the Bharatiya Janata Party. One does understand and appreciate that they've been burnt once. They don't want to put their foot forward. But if the numbers are on their side, what's stopping the BJP to come in and say this government is in minority?
Preeti, in fact, it's the law. The law is quite clear on the subject that if the merger takes place, then only all possibilities open up. And that would be decided on the floor of the House. And to go on the floor of the House, somebody has to stake a claim. And nobody till now has, put that claim forward. And things are in a very state of flux. But the fact, remember, the ideal situation is that no whip is issued by Shiv Sena, Uddhav Thackeray resigns, and a new chief minister comes who proves the strength in the floor of the house. That would be an ideal situation. However, it appears, and I would agree with Rajdeep Sardesai, that the advice given by Sharad Pawar will not be to resign. It could be otherwise also. We don't know. But the fact remains that would make the things very difficult for BJP. And Sharad Pawar, as of now, is relying on the technicalities of the law, which is only the merger, which is the possibility. So today the things are not very, very clear. Ultimately, there are two issues out here. The new chief minister, whoever comes, will come through the floor test of the house. Second, which is the real Shiv Sena, that will come through election commission. And that's a long drawn process. You have to prove so many things. And although it can happen, because it happened in the case of Ram Vilas Paswan's party, the 8 out of 9 MPs clearly took the emblem and everything and claimed themselves to be the real party. So out here also the similar situation may arise, but that will take time because both the sides have to be heard. The notice have to be issued, the election commission will have to hear both the sides. That's a long run process. An ideal situation which will be very good for Uddhav Thackeray and is to resign in a manner and accept Shinde, that a person who is an ordinary Shiv Sainik becomes a part of the system and he remains the head of the party and strengthens the party. That's an ideal situation. Otherwise, the Shiv Sena will suffer. Otherwise, the only outcome is that the Shiv Sena will suffer, whichever group it is.
But Rajdeep wants to come in. Rajdeep, is it that simple? Is it the ideal way of going? Has the perception been bought that the reason it's happening is because of the Hindutva perceptives split, and not that this is a group which is power hungry and possibly greedy?
Look, point number one: every day that you get in power, you can sign files. I am told that about 100 files have been cleared in the last 3 days. That's the allegation that one BJP leader made to me, that over 100 files have been cleared in the last 3 days. The government is quickly clearing some contentious files as well. So there is an advantage of staying in power. And while you are in power, at least you can control events, at least in Mumbai. You may not be able to control what happens outside that, but you can control events in Mumbai. The point is Hindutva. Let's be honest again, Preeti. When they formed this government with NCP Congress, the Shiv Sena knew that Hindutva was going to be put on the back burner. All these MLAs, including Eknath Shinde, were well aware of that. They have rediscovered this 2.5 years later to try and take the moral high ground, to try and somehow suggest that this revolt is not about power politics, it's about commitment, ideological commitment to Hindutva. The fact is, Eknath Shinde was accompanying Aditya Thackeray a week ago. They went to Ayodhya together. Where was the Hindutva? That time they were happily going together.
In fact, late 2015, Eknath Shinde made a public statement saying he didn't want the alliance with the BJP.
Look, the fact is, these are all opportunists across party lines. What happened in November 2019 was opportunism, where Sharad Pawar played, in a sense, a key role in ditching both the BJP and ditching the BJP at the last moment, as did Uddhav Thackeray. What you are seeing today is also opportunism and self-preservation. Right. I think one must ask this question: why is it that the Enforcement Directorate is only targeting the close aides of Uddhav Thackeray and the NCP?
Right.
Are we saying that Eknath Shinde, whose own track record involving certain key aides of him who've had income tax rates, they are not going to be touched? Why is it suddenly that Pratap Sarnaik, who was the original person to say let's join the BJP so that we can get off the ED's stranglehold, has joined Eknath Shinde in Guwahati? What will happen to them? This washing machine politics is also something we should look at as journalists. It is not a level, please appreciate, it is not a level playing field at the moment in Maharashtra.
Right.
The fact is at the moment that you've got Eknath Shinde, who has all the benefits now of having the BJP's machine behind him. The BJP is silent, yes, but they are silently working to a plan. And the plan is eventually to try and ensure that the Hindutva space is monopolized by the BJP across Maharashtra, because the Shiv Sena, this was, Preeti, original plan of Pramod Mahajan. When he tied up with Bal Thackeray, his belief was post Bal Thackeray's death, the BJP would capture the Sena space. As it turned out, ironically, Pramod Mahajan died tragically before Bal Thackeray. But this is exactly what they were building towards. And that is the eventual plan. Can I capture the entire Hindutva space using in a way the Sena's commanders like Eknath Shinde as almost proxies in this battle and eventually marginalize the Thackerays? Is that possible? The BMC elections will tell us that.
Well, all right. Then, Mr. Nigam, you differ on the fact that the entire Hindutva perspective is playing out very differently. You've always maintained that, there is credence to it because it was an unnatural alliance to begin with. Ideology-wise, it doesn't sit.
Yes, absolutely. Because the leadership may have shaken, hands with the other parties, but the voters and the supporters of the and the workers of the Shiv Senics could not. Their hearts could not meet with the NCP or the others. That disconnect was always felt by the MLAs. They had that feedback from the ground that disconnect with the voters and supporters is taking place. And these MLAs and elected representatives are very sensitive to the opinion of the people and the voters. And once they have that feedback, they waited for some time, and finally when they got to understand the situation and the elections are coming up, including the BMC and subsequently the other elections would also come in line, then they were forced to take that step. And they are correct in doing so because this unnatural alliance was actually eating into the vote bank of the Shiv Sena. And that feedback mechanism that they have, and let me tell you, let's not discount the smartness of these MLAs. We may think that they are power hungry and things like power is a common denominator across all the parties. So one has to now leave that common denominator and look for exact reasons why this is happening. Once you
please tell me, Mr. Nigam. Mr. Nigam, please tell me, the MLAs who are sitting today in Guwahati, against whom there are serious cases of income tax and enforcement directed violations, will they be given a clean chit or not? Will you approve it if they are given a clean chit? Is this the kind of politics this country is going to see? That if you are close to the government in power in the center, all your sins are washed away. All of them. I can give you the entire list of all the Shiv Sena MLAs who today are in Guwahati who have enforcement directed cases against them.
Let me answer, Rajdeep. I would not like to be a judge here because these matters will be decided by court. And I don't have that privilege and liberty because I'm a lawyer too. So ultimately, any washing of sins has to be tested in a court of law. ED cannot withdraw on its own. Once it is registered, it is before the court. And
you know better. You are a lawyer. You know how lawyers can, how courts can allow, how the enforcement agency can allow a matter to delay for years together. That is what is happening in Maharashtra.
Then why not question the court?
Let's be honest. What happened in November 2019? Sir, let me be honest. What happened in 2019 November was a betrayal of the mandate. The mandate was for a Devendra Fadnavis-led BJP Sena government. No doubt about that. No one should have any quarrel with that. However, what is happening today also is a misuse of state power to try and intimidate and push MLAs into a corner. Let's also be honest about that. It's time we accepted that our democracy is in recession. Let's not try and paper over it when it suits us. November 2019.
Mr. Sajjad, let him answer. He's trying to get in a word in. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Nigam. Go ahead.
Rajdeep, I'm a guest to your channel. Please allow me to express my views.
No, because you should be honest, sir.
Yeah, I'm being very honest. I told you we don't have the liberty to prejudge any issue. And if anybody has a problem, the courts are there to look at it. Either we are questioning the courts, the intelligence of the courts or the wisdom of the courts. The state machinery can also be questioned before a court of law. They are not above law. The rule of law prevails in this country. If they are innocent, they will be left. They will be, they will be acquitted by the court. The delays do take place in our court system, whether it is a normal property case or a criminal case, we all have seen, and that requires a judicial reform, and that's a separate debate altogether. But as a responsible citizen, I cannot prejudge an entire issue. If those people who are sitting in Guwahati, if they have a case against them, they have to follow the due process of law, which is available to any other citizen as well. However, coming to this point, coming to the present scenario, and I told you, the law has a lot of technicalities. It is not as simple because the no confidence motion against Deputy Speaker, as and when the floor test is called, that will be taken up first. and a new speaker will be appointed, and then the floor test will take place. So it's not as simple as that. So let's wait for 2-3 days, and I think things will be quite crystal clear.
Rajit Kidwai, I want to bring you in because we're talking about the floor test, and when you actually, how long protracted that is, we'll only know in a few days. But when we get down to the floor test, there's so much attention that is being given just to the MLAs of the Shiv Sena. But when it comes down to the lot, the Congress might say it has their 44 lot together, but the most vulnerable at this point of time for cross voting, when they know that the power equations lie with the BJP, the Congress would be most vulnerable. Even if you look at Kamal Nath's meeting, 15 minutes, with Sharad Pawar, 15 minutes with his own MLA, stayed there for half a day and left.
Preeti, theoretically speaking, yes, but in practical terms, it's highly unlikely that the Congress would split, because there is no place in that group. Now that Devendra Fadnavis group, I mean that being BJP and Eknath Shinde, they have the numbers, so they don't need other support. Why would Congress people go there? They may go in one or twos, but one or twos would lead to a lot of technical problems, because a formal split in Congress cannot take place. And a speaker selection, Preeti, we must remember, is also can act as a vote of confidence or no confidence against Uddhav Thackeray. So if there is a new speaker selection, then that will settle it. I don't see the real problem of Shinde is that he is not able to make up his mind, or he has got into this trap. On the one hand, he's trying to sell this line that he's a real Shiv Sena. He may be. At the same time, he's, as Mr. Sardesai was pointing out, he's desperate to get into power. Now, both cannot, coexist. A lot has been said in this conversation I was hearing about, the fact that, the Sena and Hindutva. Sena has not been an offshoot of RSS or Sangh Parivar by any stretch of imagination. Bala Sahib Thackeray started off against communists, against South Indian, against Muslims, against all kind of things. He defended emergency. He defended, his party supported Pranab Mukherjee as a UPA presidential nominee. So all these things are there. The political parties are not prisoners of ideology. And to say that this was, defied that mandate, what happened in Bihar when Nitish Kumar and RJD had fought together and Nitish Kumar joined, and people of that state gave a renewed mandate. So we should not, this is a very elitist way of looking at it. What was BJP doing with PDP in Kashmir?
Right. Okay. I'm going to close but okay, I'm going to move on in the show. But Rajdeep, I'll bring you in for a quick one. So what we're really looking at now is a floor test. It's the number of days that matter.
First, yes, I agree. We are looking at a floor test, and it appears to me almost impossible for Uddhav Thackeray to retain control of the legislature party, and thereby this government has gone into a minority. I cannot see Uddhav Thackeray surviving at the moment. He is holding on to power literally by his fingernails. But a very quick comment on what Rashid said about the fact that alliances can be unholy or unnatural at times. Of course they can be. But I will say this, that the rank and file of the Sena, I think, would prefer to be with the BJP, because there is a coming together on the Hindutva plank. In that sense, when your rank and file itself would prefer an alliance with a particular party, the message goes up to the leaders. The leaders want power. The workers, in a way, want at least some kind of affiliation where they feel ideologically aligned to the larger vision of the party. In that sense, I think Uddhav Thackeray's attempt to moderate the Shiv Sena has failed. I think that's the failure of Uddhav Thackeray. He attempted it, and good luck to him. He tried to change the Shiv Sena, but the Shiv Sena remains the party of Bala Sahib Thackeray and not of Uddhav Thackeray. And therefore, I think the natural tendency, the natural habitat almost of the Shiv Sena is the BJP. And that's probably what we will see in the months ahead. Whether it happens in a week, 2 months, 3 months, the court battles will continue. But eventually, I think you will see the BJP Shiv Sena come together.
Okay, Mr. Kidwai, I know you want to come in. So quickly make your point. I need to get out of the debate.
Preeti, it would interest you when the MVA was formed and a common minimum program was being written. In English text, it said secularism, secular word, but in Hindi and Marathi edition, there was no term for dharmanirpeksha or panthanirpeksha. So this is a kind of trick, that jugglery that MVA was doing.